Finalizing Your Application workshop. We'll probably have a few more people joining us in the next few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I hope you can see the slides on my screen. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. We will also leave plenty of time at the end for you to ask questions. And so we'll try to get you to the finish line and figure out how to get all of you to submit your applications for the upcoming deadline. So this is, as I said, the Finalizing Your Application workshop for the U.S. student program. All right, so just so that you can see where we are just a few days from the U of M campus deadline. The campus deadline is this coming weekend, Sunday night, August 27th at 11:59 p.m. This is an online deadline, so you can work basically up till the deadline. Frankly speaking, if you get a few minutes past the deadline, if you don't actually make it, right at 11:59 p.m. This is the one deadline where you will be able to get away with it, because we're not going to do anything until we come into the office until Monday morning. And as long as your application is there Monday morning when we come into the office and start processing, you're going to be fine. Now, I need to say that this is the one where you will get away with it. When it comes to the national deadline in October, you're not going to be able to get away with not making the time cutoff. So just please remember that difference. So as I said, we are right at a few days before the campus deadline. And this is just a kind of a brief overview of what's going to happen after the campus deadline. So if you are able to submit your application by the campus deadline, you will be eligible for a campus endorsement and a campus interview. The interviews will be scheduled in September. It might run into October, depending on how many submissions we get and when interview faculty panelists are available to actually be scheduled for interview. But you will be scheduled for an interview, and we will let you know, hopefully before we go into Labor Day weekend. You will have your date and time, and so when you're assigned to show up for an interview. Once you submit your application for the U of M campus deadline, your application will lock, and it will be only temporary, but it will lock until we process your application and kind of figure out what's going on. Once your interview is scheduled, we will go in and unsubmit your application so that you will have access to your application again, and you will have a chance to make final edits on your application, based on, and you'll get lots of feedback from your interview panel committee members, and you can incorporate all that feedback, do a revision of your application, and then do final edits, and then do a final submission to the final deadline. You do need to resubmit your final version of your application prior to the national deadline. We're saying as the final U of M deadline, October 6th. We're giving you this date because that is the last day where we as Fulbright campus advisors can unsubmit your application for you. Once we're past this date, we cannot unsubmit your application. We can't just go into the system and unsubmit your application and make that available to you. So if you submit by the campus deadline and you find that, well, oh my God, there's just one typo in the essay that I didn't know that I had before, and you need to fix that. Up until then, you can contact us. We can unsubmit your application. You can fix it and resubmit. The final national deadline is Tuesday, October the 10th. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time. This is absolutely a very firm deadline. They will give you absolutely no exceptions, even for technical difficulties. So keep that in mind. The national deadline is a super, super hard deadline. This is part of the reason why we strongly recommend that you submit the final U of M deadline on October 6th and have that out of the way. Make sure that it's submitted. You don't run into technical problems, congestion, all of that. Historically, we have had the experience that The national application website tends to get a little congested and slow right around the national deadline. And so we do recommend very strongly that you give yourself plenty of time to get your application in and have the plenty of time to spare before that 5 o'clock deadline on October 10th. Okay, so now that we have kind of the date straightened out, what do you need? What do you need to submit for the campus deadline? So the requirements are pretty much the same for all types of Fulbright awards, but we'll start with the study research and the arts awards, the open study research and the specific study applicants. So in order to have a campus interview, you need to submit your application on the Fulbright National Application System. So this is not going on Canvas. This is going to be on the actual Fulbright application. You will need to do all of the online forms. You need to upload your statement of grant purpose, your personal statement. Both of these statements should be a reasonably polished draft. It doesn't have to be a final draft, but it better be pretty close. Upload all of your official transcripts. If you are required to have letters of affiliation, you should also upload your letters of affiliation. If you don't have your official letters of affiliation, the one that's on the institutional letterhead with the signed letter and all of that, that's okay for the campus deadline. You can upload a placeholder document that gives us an idea of who you've been in communication with and that the letter is forthcoming. So you can give us PDF, a copy of the most recent email communication with your potential host that says that you're in communication and that they're willing to write a letter. That's okay as a placeholder for this deadline. But be sure to, if you're required to have a letter of affiliation, be sure that you upload something so that we see that the letter will be forthcoming. Your recommendations. You need to have all 3 of your recommenders registered in the online system with the email request sent to them already. And you need to have at least 2 out of the 3 recommendations completed and submitted. Okay, let me repeat that. All 3 recommendations registered and the email request sent, and at least 2 out of 3 recommendations completed and submitted. Okay, and foreign language evaluation. If you're required to have one, you should complete your self-evaluation on the online application and register the person who's going to be doing your foreign language evaluation. The actual evaluation itself is not required at this time. If you can get it and it's done already, that's great, but it's not required at this time. And I will mention that if you're currently enrolled at U of M and you're going to be taking a language class starting next week in the fall term, and that's your language that you're going to need for Fulbright, I will actually recommend that you wait for the actual evaluation until you get to late September so that the instructor can see you in class for the first few weeks and kind of see how you perform and have your evaluation based on that and have it done at the end of September. But make sure you get that done at the end of September. But talk to your instructor now, make that arrangement. They're going to do this at the end of September. Have that person registered on the online application system, but the actual evaluation itself doesn't need to be completed until later. If you're an arts applicant, you're doing one of the creative and performing arts applications, you need to also upload your supplementary materials to your application before submission. All right. If you are an ETA applicant, a lot of the requirements are going to be the same. Still, you need to do the online application. All of the application forms and the questions on the application. You need to upload your statement of grant purpose. You need to upload your personal statement. You need to upload all the required official transcripts. And again, 3 recommendations, have all 3 recommenders registered on the system with the email request sent, and at least 2 out of the 3 recommendations completed and submitted. If a foreign language evaluation is required for your ETA application, you will need to have completed your self-evaluation on the online application and have registered your evaluator on the system and have the email message sent, the request email message sent from the system. As I said, the actual evaluation itself does not need to be done at the time. If it's done already, great. You're one step ahead for the final deadline, but it's not required for the campus deadline. Okay, so far so good, right? Okay, so in terms of things to watch out for, in terms of a checklist for before you do your final submission, make sure you read and proofread and your finalize your statement. There are, for those of you who submitted drafts for the beginning of August deadline, you got comments back from an advisor. There are also general guidelines of how to put together a statement of purpose posted on the Canvas site. So double check what you've written against the rubric and the tips that are found on the Canvas site, and make sure you've covered all the points that you need to cover. Double check your formatting requirements. There are very specific formatting requirements for both the statement of grant purpose and the personal statement. And those are posted on the National Fulbright website as well as on our Canvas site. And make sure you follow those formatting requirements to the T. This is one of the easiest ways to have your application not even being considered for being read by a committee, is to violate one of the requirements for the formatting, and they can toss your application right out the door at the eligibility review stage if you don't follow those instructions. So be sure to follow those instructions. One of the very common mistakes that we see is that you need a clean 1-inch margin on all 4 sides of your statement. You may not put anything in the margin, so that what they say as the line 1, line 2, and I think line 3 for those of you who are doing the study research application, those actually, they really mean the first 3 lines of your statement below the 1-inch margin, okay? And there are very specific requirements of what needs to be in the first 3 lines. For those of you who are doing the study research applications, there are also very specific requirements of what needs to be at the top of page 2 of your statement of grant purpose. So pay attention to those requirements and follow those instructions exactly, okay? So that's number 1. Transcripts. There are quite specific instructions on which transcripts are required and what you need to upload. So please read those questions, read those instructions, and follow those instructions. If you have any questions, please ask us, and we can try and figure that out for you. And this is especially important for those of you who've done like study abroad, if you're a transfer student, if you're a graduate student and have transcripts from multiple institutions. If you're not clear about which transcripts you need to upload, please ask us and tell us your situation, and we'll figure this out together. Okay. Everybody needs a project title and an abstract. This is especially true of those of you who are doing study research applications. Now, they ask you for your project title in lots of different places, and make sure that what you put in on the online application as your project title and what you put in on line 3 of your statement of grant purpose, that all those different things match, that you have the exact same title on all of those places, because that's another place where if you make a change somewhere midway through, and you forget to update all of them, there can be a mismatch, and that's one of the things that doesn't look good on you. So make sure that all of those different places where you need to have your project title, or you need to have your field of study, that those things actually match in the different places where they need to be. Again, proofread, so that you catch all of your typos, errors, etc. If you have somebody else, say a family member or a roommate or somebody who can help you with your application, it's a really good idea to have somebody else help you proofread, because a lot of times I find this myself, and I think a lot of people find this too, that if you keep working and working and working on the same thing, soon, at some point your eyes kind of glaze over the text and you're not actually reading or looking at it and so a fresh pair of eyes really do help at this point. And so if you can get help from either a family member or a trusted friend or a roommate, this will be the time to ask for that help. We strongly recommend that you preview and save and print, save and or print, or maybe even both. Save an electronic copy as well as print a hard copy of your final application before you submit. This is just in case something happens, not that, we expect that things are going to go wrong, and they're most likely they're not, but just in case something happens, this way you have a record of what you submitted, and you can make sure that you have a copy for you. So we do strongly recommend that you preview and save and print your application before you submit. Okay. All right, a couple of more things for special situations, especially for those not the generic study open study research or ETA applicants, but if you're applying for one of those UK, United Kingdom Partnership Awards, where a Fulbright is tied to a particular university. There are also these types of awards, not just in the UK, but in a few other countries. Or if you're doing a special type of Fulbright, make sure you review the instructions and the requirements and follow those instructions in the application. Make sure you go back and take a look at the country award profile once more, and make sure that you follow the instruction for your specific country grant, the field of study, the award for that. There are certain countries that require extra things. They are usually explained in the section of the award profile that has to do with either statements, letters of affiliation, proposal section. So make sure you read and follow those instructions. Make sure you read and follow those instructions. Again, arts applicants do go over the required supplementary materials and follow the instructions for that as well. Okay, so that's for the Fulbright application. So you are going to do that on the online Fulbright application site and submit your application by the campus deadline. Now, in addition to submitting your Fulbright application, you are also required to complete the intent to apply and interview conflicts. This is a Google form that's internal to us at U of M. You should have a link for this. We've sent this multiple times in email messages. It's also posted on our Canvas resources site in the U of M deadline requirements page. So please also fill that form out at the same time. And this kind of tells us what we need to pay attention to as far as scheduling your interviews in September. We will. I'm going to go ahead and say that while we're not going to be able to take into account your class schedule, so if you're going to be attending classes, it's just way too complicated with the number of interviews that we have to schedule and the availability of panelists. So we're not going to be able to take into account, your class schedule much as much as we'd like to. But if you're going to be traveling, if you have like a medical appointment that you know about, religious holidays that we like that we need to take into consideration, please do fill out that form and tell us what they are so that we can try and avoid scheduling your interview on at a time when you're not available. So those are the two things that are required. You need to submit your online application on the Fulbright application site, and then complete the intent to apply and interview conflicts form. And that's a Google form for us. Okay. Now, of course, if you have any questions between now and the deadline, or at least the remainder of this week, if Fulbright Program Advisors are available to answer your questions. We have some online hours, online and in-person drop-in hours scheduled both this afternoon and tomorrow. I'm just going to give you as a warning that we're also doing new student orientation in this building, and so some of us are doing double duty. But we will be, somebody will be available to answer your questions between now and 5 o'clock on Friday. And so if you can make one of the drop-in hours, feel free to come and see us during the drop-in hours, and we can have a conversation. So we have time scheduled this afternoon. We have some times also scheduled tomorrow. There are no drop-in hours scheduled on Friday, but we are available by email. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email, and we keep a very close eye on the II Fellowships inbox. So just as a reminder of where to find us, we're in the 3rd floor of Weiser Hall. So if you'd like to come for an in-person drop-in, you can find us on the 3rd floor of Weiser Hall. You can also email us at iifellowships@umich.edu. Advising appointments, we're not actually formally scheduling advising appointments at this point, but if you have any questions, feel free, please come and see us during drop-in hours, or shoot us an email at iifellowships@umich.edu.